This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
AI is everywhere. I don't care what you're doing, if you're at a restaurant, if you're on the computer, AI is everywhere. And we were talking how a lot of people, there's been some chatter here, how people say, I don't need to meet with somebody like Mark. I'll just plug it into my AI bot and it'll tell me that my retirement's going to be great.
Oh, wow. I'm so glad you brought this up. We were just having this conversation here as a team in my office because, for a long time there was Dr. Google who was prescribing all sorts of medications and answers that drove the medical doctors crazy, competing with this Dr. Google. And now we have that on steroids with AI. And, I'm thrilled with AI. I'm so excited about the future. I just see the world in so many ways just getting better and better in ways we can't even comprehend yet. Some ways getting worse, of course, but you get both sides to that coin. But yeah, we're actually seeing it in our business now. I'm seeing people who take our advice and plug it through, AI and get sometimes contradictory advice. And the interesting thing, I was talking to a software engineer the other day, and he was talking about how they're using it at his business. He works for UPS, and we were both talking about how it's changing our work. But he was saying sometimes he just gets this nagging feeling that the answer he got wasn't that great, and so he'll put another question and so as he says, each time I revise my question, I'm getting different responses. And I had to laugh because that was exactly my observation, is clients are putting things in, and if you don't phrase the question exactly right, you have much less chance of getting an accurate answer than you think. And so there's a limitless number of answers you can get from AI, but what it lacks is the wisdom that comes from a human being. There's no shortage of information out there, but the ability to be able to translate that, the wisdom that comes from years of experience, and is really not something I think the computer's ever going to be able to fully replace. I think I've still got job security, but it's interesting that I feel sometimes like we're competing with this faceless kind of tool that's out there. It's so wonderful in what it can do, but it's also frankly dangerous, I think, in that it does give bad advice.
There's good and bad to every side, I think, of many things, including AI. And you said the word tool, and I think that's so important to highlight here. AI is amazing. It can do some incredible things, but it's a tool. It is not a replacement. It saves sometimes hours on some administrative, things that you'd be putting together, or emails or what have you. But again, there's a difference between something just quickly compiling information or quick answers and actually having that depth of knowledge, especially because, planning for retirement and the rules and the regulations, and we talk about the vehicles getting you to and through retirement, these things change all the time. And I don't know about you listening, but I would never want to just go to AI and be like, hey, does everything look good in my retirement? Okay, great, whatever. Also, if something does go wrong, I want to be able to call Mark personally and say, Mark, what is going on? What do I need to do? What happened? What can we do better? I want to talk to a person. You know how irritating it is when you try to call like your cable company and it's like, press 1. I'm your AI helper. Have you done this? That's frustrating enough just talking about my cable. I can't imagine talking about my money to an AI.
It really is your lifeline, because most people don't have a second chance to get retirement right. I mean, they've really got to do it right. And so there's so many things we've picked up, just the practical experiences of working with thousands of people over the years. Wisdom comes from experience, applying that information to practical circumstances. So we invite people to listen to us. Certainly get whatever resources you can from AI and Dr. Google or whatever you want to go to, but at the end of the day, let's have a customized conversation to your situation and get solutions that'll work for you.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. Again, if you're looking for these solutions and if you're wondering, okay, where do I stand right now when it comes to my retirement? This works if you are a couple years from retirement. Maybe you're already retired, but you want to do a little check-in here. And this is a conversation that I always urge our listeners to have with Mark one-on-one. I mean, he's been doing this, guys, for over 30 years. If you'd like to sit down and put together your very own customized retirement roadmap, and this is something that's built from the brain and the hands of Mark himself, nothing AI. This is what you'll do. You'll call today, say, guys, I want to sit down. This retirement roadmap is where I want to start. That phone number, 702-996-4050. 702-996-4050. That website, mygoldenyearsroadmap.com. The word trillion is everywhere. Elon Musk briefly became a trillionaire following the initial public offering of SpaceX. There are now trillion-dollar-plus companies, trillion-dollar deficits, and trillion-dollar headlines everywhere. But, I mean, think about this. Can you really picture a trillion? Turns out the Wall Street Journal did a little research, and they found that you could be stacking 1 trillion pennies, and it would take you to the moon and back twice. That's how much it is. Research shows even financially savvy people are having a hard time wrapping their heads around such big numbers. So for retirees sitting on healthy savings balances here, Mark, how do you see that number blindness showing up in real planning conversations?
Boy, that's a great question, because I don't know that people really understand the impact of inflation and how it devalues our dollars. I was in the grocery store the other day checking out, and I looked over at my favorite candy bar, and I thought, holy cow, I remember getting a Three Musketeer for 10 cents as a kid, and it was $3.29. 33 times more expensive. We're talking a matter of 55 years, Certainly we have a lot of people that come to us who have, more than $1 million saved for retirement. And once upon a time, that seemed like the magic number that, boy, if I can only be a millionaire. Now it's so much more common. It doesn't go as far. We got to remember, at a 3% rate of inflation, that the cost of living doubles every 25 years. So that $1 million is going to be worth half as much. And I think a lot of people really struggle with this. How much is my money really worth? Where are you at? What are your different income sources? How much of it's going to be taxed? In other words, how much of it do you actually get to keep? And then, is your money really what you think it is? I've recently had this conversation with my wife, and I mean, without getting too personal, it's just, she doesn't deal with numbers the way I do. And it was just this conversation about what it really is going to take to carry your current lifestyle another 20, 30 years. And I think it was a little shocking to her. It's always shocking to me, but again, I deal with it every day. So I would say it gives a false sense of security sometimes. It doesn't seem real when we start talking about millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires. It's just not the same as what it was when we were 5 and 10 years old. So come visit with us, folks. Let's see, are you really ready? Will your money carry you as far as you think it will? And I always say everyone can retire if they're willing to live on what they have. Sometimes what they have is not sufficient. So we have to have some difficult conversations about it may be good to work part-time a little bit longer, or full-time a little bit longer, or maybe fewer cruises.
Few less vacations or what have you.
Yeah.
But listen, this is a big conversation for those that are thinking about retiring, or maybe you've been retired for quite some time. And, at some point it was projected that your money, your income is going to last as long as you need it. But listen, guys, we've had this record high inflation, and it honestly shows no sign of slowing down. It's concerning. I know for me, even getting a paycheck every 2 weeks as I do, there are times where I go, how much longer can we keep affording these high prices, whether it's food or gas or just cost of living? I mean, everything is astronomical right now.
Friday night, we took a bunch of our clients out to a show down here at one of the resorts, and it's called Good Vibrations. It was a tribute to the Beach Boys. Phenomenal show. But one of the things that stood out to me, in addition to just having a great time with our clients, was most of the service people there at the concert hall were in their 70s. A couple of them were probably in their 80s now that I think about it, but I thought that's interesting because they probably didn't see themselves in that capacity. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with working in your 70s. I'm a big fan of that, actually. I think people will live longer. But if it's not your choice, if you're there of necessity, that's a whole different conversation. And so this idea of, will your money last? Will it last? That's the number one fear people have. They're not fearful of dying as much as they are of running out of money and becoming dependent on others, or, not being able to go back to work. So I say God bless these resorts and Walmart and others that are hiring into later years. But I would prefer it be a choice for people rather than a necessity. Come visit with us. Let us help you just gauge, are you retirement ready?
And you'll be able to answer those questions when you put together this retirement roadmap that we talk about here. Again, customized just for you. Again, that phone number, 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050. The website, mygoldenyearsroadmap.com. A financial reporter who spent years studying the 1929 stock market crash says a lot of the same warning signs are showing up today. CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin talked to 60 Minutes.
The crazy part about this is from 1928 to September of 1929, the stock market was up 90%.
When you say the stock market was way up,
right,
immediately I think of now. Are you scared?
I'm anxious. I'm anxious that we are at prices that may not feel sustainable. And what I don't know is we are either living through some kind of remarkable boom, and part of that's artificial intelligence and technology and all of that, or everything's overpriced.
Or we're reliving
1929.
I mean, it's kind of what we just talked about here. Are these prices, can we sustain them? Is it just that they're high, or are we headed for some bad times here? What do you think? I mean, this happened 100 years ago, obviously. The parallels, I mean, they matter, kind of, but I mean, how much do they matter in today's economy?
Well, I'm a great student of history, and I think we can learn a lot from it. I hesitate to prognosticate or try to forecast things with the market because innovations like AI, artificial intelligence is changing the world at a pace we can't comprehend. And I think the world is just going to get better and better and better. I really am optimistic about the future, and again, in ways that I don't think we can comprehend. But with that said, I remember the dot-com boom, and I remember how there was kind of this fever. Everyone was intoxicated with the opportunities, and I had clients that were in their early 20s, who were made millionaires overnight, as it were, with the dot-com opportunities. They invented some little app kind of thing and some software program, and suddenly they were millionaires. But we remember how that bubble burst, and I think it would not be surprising if we have something similar. I'm stunned at how intoxicated people are with NVIDIA. I mean, it should be part of a person's portfolio, but I'm meeting with the guy this next week who has literally all of his IRA money, about just under $1 million, in 2 stocks, mostly NVIDIA, and that just terrifies me. So, yeah, 1929, I don't know. I'm not God. God alone knows what's coming. But I think that people have forgotten that certainly when it comes to approaching retirement and transitioning into retirement and being in retirement, that what got us successfully to retirement is not what's going to keep us successfully in retirement. It's different strategies, climbing a mountain versus descending a mountain. And people need to think far more about preservation, about diversification. That's absolutely the conversation I'm going to have with this gentleman this next week, because I'm a little terrified by his position, because he's got I think a little bit of undue exuberance, as it were, about things never ending. I mean, I can tell you a quick story. I remember a client just a couple of years ago, right before the election, and he came to me, he actually from the radio show. He had a lot of money, and most of it was with Tesla. And he wanted us to create an income plan that they could never outlive, and we did that for him. We showed him how to contractually guarantee income that he could never outlive, and yet he ended up not taking the recommendation, because he said to me, he says, well, Elon's in the news, he's doing all this stuff with Trump, things are just going to get better and better. And we all know what happened. Not long after the election, Tesla stocks plummeted. Now, they rebounded later, but the point is that almost overnight, his retirement savings cut almost in half. And for most people, we're not going to be lucky enough to have a quick recovery overnight, as it were, in a single stock like that. We've got to think differently. And so I get a little fearful when people who are now in their 50s and 60s, who have spent 30, 40 years seeing this massive run-up in the markets, when they think that that's always going to continue. I think it will continue long term, but I think the corrections are going to happen at times that are not always convenient for each of us. I'm a big safety first kind of thinker, and what I mean by that is the probability is you're going to earn more money in the market over time, but the other probability is the market's going to have corrections, and it's not going to come when you and I necessarily want it to. The universe doesn't always coincide with Mark Cordner's personal timeline, and so we have to have preservation strategies in place. If you're Steve Wynn and you've got billions of dollars, it's less of an issue of survival. But the people I deal with are mom and pop America. That's who I chose to spend my career working with. And for them, we're talking about sacred money that can't quickly be re-earned, as it were. Or they can't always go back into the workforce to recover that. And so I would just encourage people to think about preserving at least a portion of their money, having a portion of their money out of the market. There's alternative investments, there's insurance products, there's different things you can do, get decent rates of return, and make sure that your money lasts. So this irrational exuberance is a big issue. I'm not going to predict 1929 again, but I will predict that people should come visit with us. Come visit with us and get a educated and experienced perspective on, are you crossing your fingers and just hoping that the ice won't break, or are you actually on sturdy ground, as it were?
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts' principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.